from a therapeutic viewpoint, I think there's a lot of things that are in common with any type of partnership. And so when you have a shared commitment, and I think that is up front something that you're doing. And sometimes it's unsaid, it's unspoken. It's something that you both assume at the very beginning. I like to go ahead and talk about those kind of things up front. A couple of publishers talked about the notion of leaning in. And this is all about sort of trusting the other person, and so that you can share some information where you might be a little vulnerable at that moment, but it's okay because there's some trust in the relationship. They talked about a shared goal. Really, the shared goal is about the work, that the work really matters, and I think that's important. So I also looked at some of the rest of their work, and they had a really nice, we have some references for you later on some of this if you want to look further at it. And they talked about two important roles. Even in a two-person team, but sometimes as well in larger teams, that there's one of the counselor and one of the motivator. Now, some people have the idea that the counseling role is a very hand-holding, singing Kumbaya, and we're all just trying to be nice to each other. But in fact, in our training for counselors, it's very difficult, but it has to be done, and that is the challenge part. There's support and challenge. And what the counselor does is ask the hard questions and say the hard, difficult things, the tough questions that, regardless of the consequences in some cases, but to really honor one another. So it's done in a way with support and that challenge. And then the motivator, this is where the person translates ideas into action, doing the schedule. When will this be done? What's their timelines like? The milestones of the task involved. So I found that sort of a very interesting notion here that you can compare it to. So I went a little further and I looked at one of my favorite therapists, well known in our field, John Gottman, and he has done a great deal of research. He really set the standard in research in couple therapy from the University of Washington. Has some great work and talks about the intent of a message and how it can be different than the impact of the message. But here are some principles from Gottman and his book, and he's written a number of books. One of the things he says about collaboration, and I guess he's talking about marriage at that point, he has a book called The 7 Principles of Successful Marriage. A lot of books, by the way. He's sort of built an empire in this. But I took 3 of the 7 principles, and you see them here on the board, on the slide. I won't read through those basically for you, but it has to do with something that's called accommodation. It's the give and take in a relationship that is extremely important and must be present in a good collaborative writing team. And then he said something about solving the solvable problems. Again, very interesting kind of phrase there. And what he does with that is look at these 5 steps. And if you allow me, I'll run through these very quickly. Soften your startup. Thank you. This is very fine print. Soften your startup. That means when you have a disagreement or you have something that's a little edgy with the other person, you don't come on like gangbusters. You basically start with something that is soft. Maybe we need to talk about this and put it, and be aware of your tone and other kinds of things. He talks about make and receive repair attempts. Repair attempts are those moments where you de-escalate the difficulty. You know, you acknowledge that the person has made progress on this work with you and not just one side or the other. Take a break. This term self-soothing, that really means take a break. That means walk away, get back, give some time in there. The other is compromise on the agreed goals. That's an easy start. If you've already agreed on those, let's go back over them. Let's take a look at compromise. And then here's the difficult one, and that is to be tolerant of others' faults. Being careful about finding the fault in others. And I think that's really important. Well, all of that's from marriage therapy from with the notion of tolerance of others and making things work in a collaborative way.